Hello, everybody. The mission I'm going to tell you about today was the scariest mission that we ever did. All right. I wish I knew the exact date. For some reason, I didn't log it in my logbook, probably because I was terrified and kind of forgot about it, I guess. Didn't forget about it, I guess, but forgot to actually put it in my logbook. But I know it happened somewhere probably late February, March timeframe. We were working out of Charkh on a 14-day duty cycle. And this was my last day on duty, and the shift ended at 8 a.m. We were doing a pre-flight or run up in the morning, and we were just doing we did engine hit checks in the morning, and we were doing a post-flight after that, which was before 8 a.m., getting the aircraft ready for the next team. And then I was going to have a less than 24 hours off, I guess, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know, really call it a day off, but just a day of not flying missions. And it was somewhere between 7:55 and 7:59 before the 8 a.m. Coming off time. And most of us were at the aircraft, and we had our radios on us, and we got a medevac call right at that time, which of course immediately your blood starts pumping. But what was different on this day was there was no way that we were going to do a mission because there was snow on the ground. The temperature is right around 32 degrees, and there was pretty much no visibility. We couldn't even see the actual runway from where we were at. It was just so foggy, hazy, that we didn't even have a thought in our mind of actually doing a mission. And just at that time, I hear our platoon commander running down the flight line towards us like, "We got a mission, we got a mission." And my response is like, "Where the hell are we going in this?" And I was flying with him that day, and he's telling me it's urgent medevac to the Charkh district. RPGs hit a wall collapsed, some American soldiers are pinned and broken up pretty bad, and it sounded horrible. And I was like, how are we going to fly in this? There's no way we're going to fly in this. And so he got on the radio, started calling around. I want to say it took a full bird colonel to give us approval to do this mission. And even then, okay, we had approval, but what was the point? We were going to try to kill ourselves in the process. So we launched, very uncomfortable. I was sitting right seat, platoon commander was sitting left seat, obviously, and he was on the controls. We took off to the southwest, headed towards Charkh. The plan was to stay as low as possible, probably less than 100 feet. Like I said, there was snow on the ground, but you had areas where either the snow was melted or you had rocks sticking up or bushes or whatever. So you had actually some sort of contrast where you could tell the difference between the ground and the air. So we're flying probably less than 100 knots, less than 100 feet. And to the south on Charkh, there was a huge area that was part of the base, but there was no buildings or structures or anything, and it was like a training area. We used whatever. So we were still flying over that, and I think we were just getting ready to cross the wire to go into bad guy territory. And our number 2 aircraft was following to the right rear, and the crew chief in the right window said that I lost 2. And what he meant by I lost 2 is he lost visibility. And immediately, just as a natural reaction, the pilot on the controls just slightly pulled back on the cyclic just enough to where, I mean, we were already going so low and so slow that with a little bit of rise in the nose of the aircraft, it started to fall. We lost altitude, we lost airspeed, and we started to come straight down towards the ground. I know the radar altimeter was probably less than 20 feet. Snow started to blow up from the ground because we were that close, and then we were in a complete whiteout condition. Luckily, he realized he was spatial disoriented, and he said, "Mitch, you have the controls." So just training took over. Inadvertent Iimc was happening. He was spatial disoriented, and I don't remember all the steps other than establish a climb, turn only to avoid known objects, and basically what that means is if you know there's a tower somewhere in that area, turn to avoid it, and you know there's a mountain, whatever, go higher than that mountain. So immediately just leveled the wings, started to climb to get away from the ground. And obviously as we started to climb, now we are in instrument conditions, 100%. No visibility whatsoever, complete just whiteness outside. Imagine driving your car at night with no headlights on, looking at nothing but the GPS. And I believe we put out a mayday call. Being he wasn't on the controls, he was calling emergency in, and we were terrified, obviously, but luckily training kicked in and we just started doing what we were trained to do. So I think the highest ridge line was like a little over 10,000 feet. So I think we climbed up to like 12,000 to avoid crashing into the side of a mountain right there. And thankfully we had somebody on base, a young private, first class, that she was trained and doing basically, I don't know, like PAR landings, and she was the only one, and she was off that morning. So they went and grabbed her as we're out there burning holes in the sky and got her in there super quick. I believe she was wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, PT gear or some sweatpants or something like that. And she got on, established comms with us, and told us to squawk a certain frequency on the transponder. She had us on our radar. Basically, we're a little blip on her screen, and she started to give us turn-by-turn directions, altitude changes. And as we're doing this, I started to get spatially disoriented myself. I'm looking at nothing but the instruments because you're trained to either you're outside or you're inside, and you can't do both. So I was focused on the inside, looking at my instruments. All of a sudden, I believe my life was starting to flash before my eyes because I started seeing my family, my wife, dogs, cats, everything. I just started drifting away. And luckily, our medic in the back, he realized this. He was doing what he was trained to do by cross-checking my instruments from the back. And he noticed that we were in a dive in a right turn. We were in a diving right turn, basically. And he noted this, and that's what I kind of snapped out of it and started to level out. And at that point, I told the platoon commander, I was like, you have the controls, because now I was disoriented. So he took the controls and he put us back straight and level, and then continued to follow the directions from her on the ground. Basically, she set us up in a big traffic pattern and circled us around, lined us up with the runway. And once we were lined up, she started bringing us down in altitude. I can't remember exactly how many feet we were off the ground before we actually started picking up visual references on the ground. And I believe it was right before we crossed the wire back into the base that we started seeing, visual references. And I believe we called off the approach and said, okay, we have it visually. And we went and landed taxied in, and thankfully our number 2 aircraft, there it was already in the parking stall, shut down. They were standing there waiting. We taxied in, shut down. I remember getting out of the aircraft, and my buddy that was flying in the other aircraft came around the corner walking towards me, and I got out and I fell to my knees. I was just terrified. You know, it was absolutely terrifying, all the times that I was shot at, and that was the scariest time ever. And got out, and I believe I hugged him, and I was like, dude, what happened? And he's like, dude, I decided I'm not doing this. And they basically just stopped, did a 180 and went back, and which we should have done as well. However, thankfully, we made it back. Unfortunately, a lot of military aircraft, or not just military, civilian pilots encounter this, and a lot of them don't come back at all. One that comes to memory is Kobe Bryant. You know, his pilot went inadvertent. Basically, he was flying visual flight rules, VFR, looking outside, flew into some weather, didn't recognize that he didn't recognize that he was spatially disoriented, and he flew it right into the side of a mountain. Unfortunately, that happens a lot in aviation. Luckily, we made it back. And unfortunately, to this day, anytime I'm in a commercial airliner and we're flying through fog, I gotta close the window. I can't look at it. It was just a terrifying experience, and thank God I'm back to tell you guys the story. And I'll tell you, after that mission though, I pulled our platoon commander to the side. Hopefully you're watching this. And I yelled at him, laid into him, and basically said that, man, we can't let our emotions take over. We got to be smart. You know, we could have killed 8 of our own and destroyed 2 aircraft in the process, trying to save a handful of lives. Which, yes, that's important, but not at the cost of what it could have cost. And I believe at the end of the day, I don't think they were able to actually get those guys until early the next morning. They actually had to send a ground convoy to go get those guys out of there because the weather just stayed like that for days. And I remember that afternoon, the task force commander had us come over, and the sergeant major, and gave us some cigars, and they had a fire going, and we just kind of sat by the fire and smoked cigars with the commander, and the only thing we were missing was some whiskey, but unfortunately we couldn't have that. And he was thankful that we were able to make it back, and thankful that we actually tried. But anyway, if any of you guys have that were on that mission with me, and you have the dates, please let me know. I'd like to put it in my book. All right, thanks. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you're a pilot, practice, practice, practice. Lots of training, you know, and don't take instruments lightly. All right, have a good one. Bye.